Hi, my name is Christian Basnight and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Frenchman Hugo Humbert scored his 6th ATP career title this past weekend at the Dubai Duty Free Championships, beating Alexander Bublik 6-4, 6-3 in the championship. However, the 5th seed's incredible title run that included victories over Gael Monfils, Andy Murray, Hubie Hurkacz, and Daniil Medvedev was largely overshadowed by controversy in the semifinals with Andrey Rublev. If you aren't aware, Rublev was defaulted from his semifinal against Bublik at 6-5 in the third set for allegedly cursing at a line judge. Rublev's outburst stemmed from the line judge not calling a Bublik baseline shot that Andrey believed was out. After dropping the game to go down 6-5, the second seed vented his frustration at the linesperson, screaming at them in their face for about 10 seconds. Rublev yelled at the linesman in Russian before saying what sounds like "not out, like it's out, how?" A Russian-speaking official who was nearby when this all happened told both the chair umpire and tournament supervisor that Rublev called the linesman an effing moron. Rublev repeatedly denied swearing and demanded that there would be a video replay of what he said, but unfortunately there was no way of doing such a thing. Bublik even asked that the match continue, but despite he and both Andrey's pleas, they defaulted Rublev. Now, a default meant that Rublev should have lost the $150,000 in prize money and 200 ranking points that he acquired from this Dubai tournament. However, as I'm editing this video, news of Rublev's appeal came out to be successful, which means that he gets to keep the points and prize money, but he'll still be fined $36,000 for his whole tirade. I just cannot upload this video. Literally, just as I was about to hit upload, Andrey Rublev issued a statement regarding this whole defaulting situation. It's his first time actually talking about it. He says, "I want to thank the appeal committee for approving my appeal and changing course on the ATP's initial decision of disqualifying me from the Dubai semifinal and taking away the rankings points and prize money I earned last week. I hope that in the future the ATP will take a closer look at this rule and make changes to it so that an official can't force a match outcome without having clear evidence and not letting the player have a video review. While I am disappointed that I wasn't able to finish my semifinal in Dubai, I am grateful for all the support I had from you the last 2 days. I received a lot of messages. Thank you to everyone supporting me. I promise I will learn from this and will try to be a better player and better person." So yeah, that was the statement. You know, I really wish he could have actually apologized to the lines person and to, I guess, his fans for acting that way. Although I guess at this point it's kind of normal for him to behave in this sort of manner. But yeah, that's his statement. Let me know what y'all think about his statement in the comments below. There are multiple issues worth noting from this incident. First, a lot of people, including fellow tour players like Alejandro Davidovich-Fokina and Daria Kasatkina, defended Rublev and said that there should be both electronic line calling at all tournaments and video assistance referees at all events, similar to what soccer has. In a perfect world, a VAR system would have been able to go back and replay, what Andrey said, did indeed say to that lines person, and verified whether he indeed called them an effing moron. The whole VAR discussion was brought up last week in Dubai when an umpire mistakenly made Coco Gauff replay a point after the American hit a service winner against Karolina Pliskova. There, the umpire called Gauff's serve out after Pliskova missed the return, and then Coco challenged the serve, which turned out to be in. Thus, it should have been her point, but the umpire must have forgotten the timing of his own call. While I do think a VAR system is much needed on the tour, a much larger talking point from the situation for me is how players, especially Rublev, treat these tournament employees. I think Coco handled her case beautifully. She did not call the umpire out of his name, and while the altercation did go on for about 5 minutes, it was relatively calm for her, and she just stood up for herself, which is what you should do. How Rublev went about his matter, venting his frustration, is just unacceptable, to be honest, and I think it's something that we've seen more of since electronic line calling has taken over the sport. It honestly seems like players just don't know how to treat on-court personnel. I do believe Rublev in that he didn't necessarily call the lines person an effing moron, use the expletive effing, but some Russian speakers online did say that they heard him say moron, which does raise a question about whether that is indeed verbal abuse. Players honestly have said far, far worse than moron, and I do think a default was honestly a bit extreme here, but looking at the bright side, the situation could serve as a lesson for other players to watch how they treat these tournament officials. And I understand the heat of the moment, can lead to certain things like that and players losing their cool, but have we perhaps normalized this too much with the likes of Nick Kyrgios? berating tournament officials. I don't know. And as some have mentioned, this is perhaps a good wake-up call for Rublev himself, and perhaps will motivate him to control his temper out there on court. Andrey is a notorious hothead on court. He really showed his tail late last year, first in Shanghai in the 1000 final against Hurkacz, when he yelled at a photographer for moving during the middle of a point. A month later at the ATP finals, he self-harmed. He beat his knee with his racket to the point where he drew blood. And then finally, in a UTS exhibition, he went off on an umpire, which is just wild. Now, Rublev was not the only player to actually lash out at a tournament official this past weekend. World number 44 Arthur Fils cursed out a tournament supervisor during his quarterfinal match at the Santiago 250. Fils wasn't happy at all with the court conditions in Chile and felt that they were dangerous, even injury-inducing. The 19-year-old questioned the supervisor's ability to judge the playability of the court without being, quote, an effing athlete. Take a listen for yourself. Fils later apologized on his Instagram story, and he clarified that he felt an injury coming on due to the dangerous court conditions in Chile. Arthur was not the only player to complain about the courts in Santiago. Spaniard Roberto Caballes Baena said the court's irregular bounces are dangerous for players and hopes the tournament will never be played again. Even Cristian Garin, who is Chilean, said his home tournament has the worst courts on the ATP Tour.
Tell me how we do! How we do, man! Fucking hell! That's the worst one. Don't yellow about what? About what? Are you a fucking athlete? Are you a fucking athlete? I'm asking to you, please answer. Are you a fucking athlete? So how do you know if it's possible to play or not on this court? How do you know? Man, I told you before the tournament, no? I told you before the tournament. What happened now? What happened now? Yeah, what happened now? If I cannot play, what happened? What, man, what? Oh, answer my fucking question. What happened now?
Fils later apologized on his Instagram story, and he clarified that he felt an injury coming on due to the dangerous court conditions in Chile. Arthur was not the only player to complain about the courts in Santiago. Spaniard Roberto Caballes Baena said the court's irregular bounces are dangerous for players and hopes the tournament will never be played again. Even Cristian Garin, who is Chilean, said his home tournament has the worst courts on the ATP Tour. By the way, Sebastian Baez ended up winning that tournament in Santiago, making him the undisputed king of the Golden Swing this year. Baez won the Rio 500 last week too. Speaking of title winners, the real tennis power couple of the moment, Alex de Minaur and Katie Boulter, both picked up 500 level titles. De Minaur defended his Acapulco crown, besting Casper Ruud in the final. Ruud, by the way, has yet to win a title above 250 level. Boulter, meanwhile, won the biggest title of her career in Santiago, beating 4 consecutive seeds in Haddad Maia, Vekic, Navarro, and Kostyuk. The Brit now enjoys a career high of 27 in the world. And then at the Austin 250, Chinese woman Yu Wan picked up her maiden tour title by beating compatriot Wang Jingyu 6-4, 7-6. Now, results aside, I want to briefly mention some coaching changes on the WTA Tour. Recently, both Maria Sakkari and Jessica Pegula announced their splits from both coaches Tom Hill and David Witt respectively. Pegula hired Mark Knowles as her replacement, while Sakkari just appointed Pegula's old coach Witt as her new coach. This is very ironic, honestly, because both these two women, Pegula and Sakkari, shared a Netflix Breakpoint episode together, and that whole episode kind of detailed their DC City Open semifinal against each other. I honestly do not think Tom Hill was the right fit for Sakkari at all. However, we do know that David Witt is a good coach from his work with Jessica Pegula. He also worked with Venus Williams in the past, and honestly, I didn't think he was that great of a coach until I saw that he really got Jessica Pegula up to a career high of number 3 in the world and has helped her become a mainstay in the top 5 for nearly 2 years now, or over 2 years. I think there's a question for both of whether both David Witt and Maria Sakkari will be able to overcome their own humps and nab a slam. Witt came close to winning Wimbledon alongside Pegula, although she fumbled a 4-1 third set lead to eventual champion Marketa Vondrousova in that quarterfinal, and then he got 2 runner-up trophies in 2017 when he worked with Venus. I honestly think it's both a mental and tactical thing with Sakkari, and like I said again, I don't think Tom Hill is a slam winning coach. I think he's decent, but he is still relatively young. David Witt, however, has much more experience on the tour working with great players in Venus and Pegula, and I think that he possibly can bring some new things to Sakkari's game, especially hopefully mentally. I'm really curious to see what comes with that partnership. I want to round out the video by talking about the Netflix slam, that Las Vegas exhibition between Rafael Nadal and Carlos Alcaraz. It was the first time we saw Nadal since Brisbane in January, as he skipped the Aussie Open due to an ongoing hip issue. Rafa lost the exhibition with the final score of 6-3, 4-6, 14-12, but we did see some excellent shot making from the Spaniard and overall pretty promising signs for him as he gears up to come back to the tour at Indian Wells this coming week. This was the first time that we saw Alcaraz on court since he injured his ankle in Rio a couple weeks back. The tennis from these two was honestly kind of mid, aside from a few hot shots sprinkled in there. The real entertainment honestly came in the tiebreaker when Rafa saved 5 match points before Alcaraz sealed the deal in the end. Honestly, this was great for tennis. It proved that Netflix definitely has the potential to make a mark in the live sports industry, which I think that they're trying to do. The camera quality was insanely good too. It was like 2160p, and it was honestly also nice to see Agassi and Roddick commentating and offering their edgy insights onto both Alcaraz and Nadal. The only issue for me as a viewer were the late calls from the lines people and the challenge system sometimes glitching and not working. But aside from that, I think it was a great success, and I think that if Netflix can possibly acquire the rights of some major tournaments, tennis can be saved. Even if you aren't a tennis fan, you're just logging into Netflix, that Netflix slam is the first thing you see, and the advertisement and promotion for that have been amazing. So hopefully there've been more people intrigued with tennis from this Netflix slam. I think there needs to be more Netflix slams in the future. But back to my previous point, I think that Netflix should acquire the rights to some big matches like the Indian Wells finals or the ATP/WTA finals like what ESPN used to do. That would help grow the sport tremendously, because right now those big matches like those finals are only available for the United States viewers on Tennis Channel, and not everybody has Tennis Channel. That's all I have for this recap video, and let me know your thoughts on the Rublev and Fils debacles and whether you believe a default was warranted for both players. Also, which 2 players would you like to see next compete in a Netflix slam? I say Venus and Serena for old time's sake. Make sure y'all subscribe and click the notification bell so you're notified whenever I post new content. Thanks for watching, and I'll see y'all soon.